the night of May 28th, 2023, 29-year-old Julia Tramontano vanished from her apartment in Milan. She was 7 months pregnant with a son, already named Tiago, but what she had discovered just hours earlier was a betrayal so complete it sealed her fate. This wasn't a disappearance, it was a termination. A meticulously planned act of violence preceded by months of psychological torment and a hidden campaign of slow-acting poison. This is the story of a double life, a dark obsession with control, and the horrifying truth concealed behind a perfect facade. On the evening of May 28, 2023, in the small settlement of Senago, all communication regarding the fate of 29-year-old Julia Tramontano suddenly ceased. The woman, who was in her 7th month of pregnancy, stopped communicating with her relatives, and her mobile device unexpectedly lost connection to the network. Julia's final text to her family spoke of heartbreak and emotional stress, the bitter end of a relationship she had desperately fought to save. When her cohabitant, Alessandro Impagnatiello, reported her missing, investigators immediately sensed the chilling absence of truth. Her personal belongings were untouched, yet all communication had ceased. The first to report Julia's disappearance to the authorities was her cohabitant, Alessandro Impagnatiello. According to his testimony, after finishing his workday and returning home, he found their residence empty and had no assumptions about his partner's possible whereabouts. From the very first hours of the investigation, the case presented numerous atypical circumstances. The home of the missing woman contained the majority of her personal belongings, and her planned activities did not indicate any intention to leave her place of residence voluntarily. During the collection of data regarding the victim's last actions, investigators encountered additional alarming facts. On the eve of her disappearance, Julia sent text messages to her mother, Laura Donny, and a close friend in which she described a serious conflict with Alessandro. The messages testified to significant emotional stress and mental anguish. The case of Julia Tramontano would quickly expose a web of calculated lies, shocking premeditation, and the stark reality of how easily darkness can masquerade as a caring partner. Julia Tramontano was born on May 2, 1994 in San Antimo, a small town in the Neapolitan province of southern Italy. She was raised in a household defined by warmth, family harmony, and unwavering support. From an early age, her parents fostered independence and self-confidence. Despite their progressive views on upbringing, family values remained the fundamental basis of their household, and her parents' home always served as a place where Julia could seek advice and emotional support. At her local educational institution, Julia demonstrated excellent results in the humanities. She had a particular interest in the real estate sector. She was fascinated by architectural solutions, investment aspects, and the prospect of a professional career as a real estate agent. After completing her secondary education, she continued her studies in her chosen field, quickly mastering professional skills thanks to her analytical thinking and developed communication abilities. By the age of 25, she had established a stable professional reputation in the industry. However, her achievements did not satisfy Julia's ambitions. She aspired to a life in a metropolis with expanded opportunities for self-realization. In her 26th year of life, her career achievements in her hometown reached a certain limit. Influenced by the stories of members of her social circle, Julia made the decision to move to Milan, a city that, in her opinion, would open a new chapter in her life with broader prospects. By the end of 2020, her decision became final. Immediately after settling in Milan, Julia actively immersed herself in her work. The city's real estate market was characterized by high dynamism, fierce competition, and demanded confidence and persistence from its participants. Her new life was filled with dynamism, but alongside her intense work schedule, she felt the need for personal happiness. It was during this period that she met Alessandro Impagnatiello. Alessandro, born in Rome in 1993, worked as a bartender in a prestigious lounge area of a 5-star hotel in Milan. A year older than Julia, he possessed a magnetic charisma and exceptional communication skills, easily establishing rapport with the financial elite and business circles that frequented his bar. He cultivated the image of a confident, self-assured man, accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle. Successfully masking a deeply unstable reality, Alessandro disclosed that he had a son from a previous relationship, but convinced Julia that that chapter was definitively closed, assuring her he was focused on building a stable future. The dynamics of their romance developed intensely, and within a few months, they made the joint decision to organize their cohabitation in an apartment on the outskirts of Milan. By November 2021, Julia nurtured the sincere hope that her Milan chapter would bring not only professional growth but also personal self-realization. Her conviction that Alessandro was the ideal partner for building a shared future was unwavering. What she couldn't see, however, was the profound dishonesty lurking beneath his polished exterior. Despite the confident image he projected, Alessandro's life in Milan was far from stable. His professional activity allowed him to methodically construct the appearance of a person accustomed to a luxurious lifestyle. He demonstrated remarkable abilities in creating a comfortable atmosphere for those around him, and possessed an exceptional gift of persuasion, skillfully masking his true intentions behind an attractive exterior and a demonstratively easygoing demeanor. His colleagues characterized him as charismatic, yet somewhat superficial, an individual who avoided genuine emotional openness. When he first started dating Julia, there were no apparent red flags. On the contrary, in the early stages of their relationship, he appeared attentive and caring. Yet, as time passed, Alessandro's authentic nature began to manifest itself more clearly. The first alarming signals appeared shortly after they began living together. Alessandro's joking remarks toward Julia took on an increasingly sarcastic tone. The target of his critical comments became her southern Italian accent, with hints at a certain cultural inferiority of those from the southern regions compared to their northern compatriots. He systematically mocked the football team Julia supported, well aware of the emotional significance of this topic for her. The frequency of interpersonal conflicts increased. Alessandro demonstrated heightened irritability over minor domestic matters. He practiced abruptly ending conversations or completely ignoring her presence, evoking in her a sense of guilt and inadequacy. During such moments, his behavior was characterized by emotional coldness and detachment, after which there would be an unexpected return to the usual style of interaction, as if the previous incident had never occurred. This intense emotional fluctuation became a typical, confusing, and draining pattern of their relationship. Alessandro categorically avoided open discussions of the emotional aspects, leaving her in a state of constant uncertainty. Unbeknownst to Julia, the most significant manifestation of his dishonesty was his parallel double life. Believing that Alessandro's absences were solely related to his professional duties behind the bar, Julia had no suspicion of a systematic deception that had been ongoing for many months. Shortly after organizing their shared residence, Alessandro initiated a second romantic relationship with a younger woman named Allegra, worked at the same hotel. To her, Alessandro positioned himself as an unmarried individual whose relationship with Julia was long over, claiming they only shared a residence temporarily until Julia could find a new apartment. He masterfully maintained this false construct, weaving a meticulous web of false testimonies to both women. In November 2022, Julia discovered she was pregnant. She was expecting a child, already chosen to be named Tiago. Starting a family had always been among her priority life goals, but the recent months of cohabitation had been difficult. When she shared the news, Alessandro's face remained entirely unreadable. He was silent for several seconds, after which he limited himself to a laconic confirmation question. He showed no signs of interest in planning visits to medical specialists. Julia experienced a sharp sense of emotional isolation. With the onset of the new calendar year, Alessandro's attitude toward the situation remained unchanged. Meanwhile, his parallel life took an unpredictable turn. At the beginning of 2023, he learned that Allegra was also in a state of pregnancy. This news came as a complete surprise to him. Allegra, like Julia, had no information about the existence of the other woman. Realizing that his carefully constructed deception was unraveling, Alessandro convinced Allegra that having a child at that moment was the wrong decision. Allegra eventually agreed to the medical procedure, and Alessandro accompanied her, ensuring that this chapter was closed. He hoped that with Allegra's pregnancy no longer an issue, He could now focus on dealing with what he saw as his bigger problem: Julia's firm decision to carry the child to term. After Julia refused to terminate the pregnancy, Alessandro understood that he was losing control of the situation. Her firm decision disrupted his plans and forced him to seek another way to free himself from what he saw as a problem. By the end of 2022, he had begun systematically researching poisons. He scoured the internet for ways to cause harm without raising suspicion, analyzing which substances were effective and difficult to detect. His research covered chemical compounds, plant-based toxins, and eventually he settled on rodenticides, products designed to kill rodents. He found information suggesting that certain types acted slowly, causing internal bleeding, weakness, and anemia, symptoms that could easily be mistaken for pregnancy complications. At the beginning of 2023, Alessandro began implementing his plan. He started adding small amounts of the toxic substance to Julia's food and drinks, hoping her health would gradually deteriorate. Within a few weeks, she began experiencing unusual symptoms: constant exhaustion, dizziness, nausea, and sharp abdominal pain. Julia confided in her friends, assuming it was just part of the pregnancy. Alessandro closely monitored her condition, but the poison did not work as quickly as he had hoped. Frustrated, he continued searching for ways to increase its effectiveness, but the results remained unsatisfactory. Alessandro was used to controlling the situation, but one misstep shattered his carefully constructed illusion. Allegra grew suspicious due to his secrecy and the sudden changes in his routine. The real turning point came when she accidentally saw recent photos of him with Julia on his phone, making it clear their relationship was far from over. When Allegra finally confronted him about the photos, Alessandro immediately claimed that Julia could not accept their breakup and was deliberately spreading these photos to manipulate him with guilt. He even claimed that Julia was faking her pregnancy in a desperate attempt to keep him. In a final attempt to solidify his lie, Alessandro fabricated a DNA test, altering a file he had downloaded from the internet, presenting it as proof that he had no connection to the child. Allegra initially accepted this version, but her doubts remained. A few days later, while Alessandro was asleep, Allegra took his phone, found Julia's number, and sent her a message. The reply came almost instantly. The next day, May 27, 2023, the two women met in person at the hotel where Allegra worked. They spent more than an hour talking. Allegra told Julia how Alessandro had assured her that his past relationship was completely over, and mentioned the so-called DNA test. Julia calmly stated that the test was fake, that she had never suggested any test, and that she and Alessandro were still living together. With each passing minute, Allegra saw the situation more clearly. She had been deceived from the very beginning. Her entire perception of their relationship shifted, and she saw Julia not as a rival, but as a fellow victim. An unexpected sense of solidarity emerged. At that moment, Julia made her final decision. She was done. She had no intention of staying with a man who had manipulated her feelings while hiding a second life. Her future belonged to her and her child. Upon returning home, she immediately confronted Alessandro, telling him she knew everything and that their relationship was over. His reaction was exactly as expected: denial, then turning defensive, accusing her of digging into his personal life. Julia firmly told him she was leaving for Naples and wanted nothing more to do with him. That evening, she texted her mother and sister explaining her decision. They fully supported her, offering to help. Julia reassured them, saying she first needed to take care of some things in Milan, but would return home in a few days. She did not know that this night would be her last. After their conversation, Alessandro realized he had lost control. Julia knew the truth about his double life, his lies, and his manipulations. Her calmness and her firm decision to leave infuriated him. He felt he was losing not only control over Julia, but also his carefully crafted image. That day, the tension between them reached its peak. Julia ignored all of Alessandro's attempts to speak, continuing to pack her belongings and showing no emotion. Alessandro tried to convince her she was making a mistake, but Julia did not respond. When he realized her decision was final, he was overcome with uncontrollable rage. He grabbed a knife from the counter and in a blind fury he struck. Julia did not have time to react. The attack was sudden and relentless. He inflicted 37 stab wounds. The forensic analysis later revealed no defensive injuries, suggesting she had been attacked by surprise. Alessandro stood over her body, staring at the reality of what he had just done. Now, he needed to dispose of the evidence. He dragged her to the bathroom, doused her with alcohol, and set her on fire, hoping it would erase the evidence, but the flames did not do what he expected. The fire left burns but did not destroy the remains. Panic set in. He grabbed rags and cleaning supplies and began scrubbing the blood from the floor, walls, and furniture. He scrubbed and scrubbed, but the stains did not completely disappear. He realized he could not erase all traces of what had happened. He took Julia's phone and, in a chilling act of deception, sent brief, vague messages to her mother and a friend, claiming she needed time alone, hoping to buy himself a few crucial hours. Just a few hours after the crime, he went to the police himself and reported Julia missing. He claimed that she had left the house after an argument and had not returned, deliberately adding details to make his story sound convincing. While the police began their search, Alessandro focused on hiding the evidence. He wrapped Julia's remains in black plastic and under the cover of night, took them to the garage. Incredibly, in the days that followed, Alessandro carried Julia's body in the trunk of his vehicle, even going to visit his mother and dining with her, all while her remains lay just meters away. Eventually, he left her in the garage basement. The police followed standard procedures for a missing persons case, but the first serious lead came when forensic experts found traces of blood in his car. A rapid analysis confirmed that the blood belonged to Julia. The second piece of evidence was found in the common areas of their apartment building. On the stairs and in the hallway, there were faint reddish stains, which chemical analysis revealed to be traces of partially clean blood. The investigators also noted Alessandro's unusual behavior. Unlike most people whose loved ones go missing, he did not show genuine concern. He did not reach out to Julia's family for help in finding her, nor did he actively participate in spreading information about her disappearance. He simply went through the formalities required to report a missing person. The key breakthrough in the case came when detectives examined his electronic devices. They seized his phone, computer, and tablet. What they found was shocking. First, they discovered search history from several months before the crime. He had searched for information on poisons, researched the effects of various toxins, and read articles on how to harm someone without being noticed. There were even searches asking why certain toxic substances might not work as intended. Another crucial piece of evidence was the fabricated DNA test he had shown to Allegra. Forensic experts confirmed that the document had been altered. The evidence was closing in on Alessandro. His version of events was falling apart. The investigators increased the pressure, pointing out inconsistencies one by one. A key breakthrough in the investigation came when authorities analyzed Alessandro's movements in the days following Julia's disappearance. Surveillance camera footage showed that in the days after she went missing, he had entered the garage several times, carrying bags inside and then returning empty-handed. Under the weight of the mounting evidence, Alessandro's story began to unravel. Eventually, he broke down and revealed the location where he had hidden her remains. On June 1st, 2023, the police discovered Julia's body in an overgrown area near Sanago. Forensic examination confirmed that the remains had been set on fire, but the process had been interrupted. Toxicology tests revealed traces of rat poison in her system, confirming suspicions that she had been poisoned weeks before her death. The revelation of Julia Tramontano's tragic fate shook Italy. In a country where gender-based crimes have long been a cause for serious concern, her case became yet another painful reminder of the danger posed by individuals who hide behind the mask of a caring partner. Allegra cooperated with the authorities. She handed over their messages which showed how he had deceived both her and Julia. She also testified about the fake DNA test and his repeated attempts to manipulate her. During the trial, Allegra appeared as a witness. According to those present in the courtroom, Allegra appeared deeply shaken. She realized that if she had not accidentally found those photos on his phone, the truth might have come out too late. After the trial, Allegra refused to speak to journalists and moved to another city, hoping to rebuild her life away from the memories associated with the case. The court found Alessandro guilty of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances. This included the cruelty of the crime, the prolonged emotional abuse of the victim, and his deliberate attempt to destroy evidence. He was sentenced to life in prison. In his closing statement, the judge emphasized that such crimes could not be justified by moments of lost control or temporary emotional distress. Alessandro's actions over several months demonstrated a clear and conscious intent to rid himself of Julia. Julia Tramontano's case forced a nation to confront the shadows of domestic violence. Her memory and the life of her son, Tiago, live on not just as a tragedy, but as a powerful call for change. If this investigation resonated with you, please consider hitting the like button and leaving a comment to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more investigations into the truth behind the darkness.